Hello and welcome to anyone and everyone watching. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Silly Season with Joe. This week in the news, there weren't quite as many top headlines like last week with Hailie Deegan signing to ThorSport, but there were still many driver and team announcements, including a potential new team entering the Cup Series for 2023. Also, I just dropped the second part to my Best Part-Time Drivers of 2022 series yesterday, this time with Trevor Bayne, so make sure to check that out if you have not already. But without further ado, let's get right into this week's Silly Season news. Our first story comes this week from the Xfinity Series, as it was announced that Ryan Ellis will be piloting the new third entry for Alpha Prime Racing, the number 43 car, for a minimum of 24 races. This comes as an update from the original statement a couple months back that said that Ryan would be only with the team for 15 races without mention of what car he would be driving. Now for Alpha Prime, we know Stefan Parsons is running part-time, who we'll get to next. We know from last week that Jeffrey Earnhardt will be going full-time in the 44 machine, and from a while back it was announced that Sage Karam will be returning with them, but neither his schedule nor his car have been made clear as of yet. It is also expected that, like last year, the team co-owners, Tommy Joe Martins and Cesar Baccarella, will also be making select starts in either the 43 or 45 cars. I'm pretty happy for Ellis. At 33 years old, he's been part-time in the top three divisions of NASCAR for some time now, often struggling to find rides with small and underfunded teams. Some may have forgotten he's actually made 6 Cup starts between 2015 and 2021, with a best finish of 32nd coming with BK Racing back in the 2016 Brickyard 400. In my opinion, though, it wasn't until this year with Alpha Prime that he finally got a decent opportunity with somewhat competitive equipment, and in his 12 attempts, he scored 2 very impressive 13th place runs at both the Las Vegas and the Charlotte Oval. He also tallied up 3 more top 20s over the course of the season. However, he did have a pretty disappointing DNQ at Martinsville. Still, overall, I think he performed better than expected, and I hope to see him take a few more steps forward in 2023. Now for Stefan Parsons. In a rather vague announcement, it was said he'll be back in 2023 for select starts, but how many and which car he'll drive remains to be decided, likely dependent on sponsorship. His main sponsor, SoCal, however, will be returning to some extent. I'm very glad to see him back, because after a pretty miserable start to his 2022 with BJ McLeod's team, he made the most of his opportunity with Alpha Prime, racking up 7 top 20s, including a highlight of an 8th place run at Bristol in only 12 races with them. He was also running right around the top 10 at Homestead all day before becoming a casualty to a late race wreck. And this all came after I and many others had written him off due to 3 very mediocre part-time stints with BJ McLeod Motorsports and JD Motorsports, where he only ever managed to finish in the top 15 twice, both at Daytona. But now he's heading into 2023 with good momentum, and I'm sure he's on a lot of team owners' radars. This week we had a lot of Xfinity news, as the next 3 stories are also from there. One of those came from DGM Racing, which announced Josh Williams will be returning to the team full-time, driving the number 92 car. This will be a reunion of sorts because, as many know, Josh drove for them from 2018 to 2021, coming with the best finish of 15th in the 2020 driver standings. That year, they showed considerable improvement from those prior with 6 top 10s before falling off a good bit in 2021 and parting ways this past season. In what was probably a move to get Cup starts with Live Fast Motorsports, Josh set his sights to BJ McLeod's other team, the Xfinity Series, where he flopped hard, failing to score a single top 10 and not qualifying for 4 races. Then, over halfway through the season, he was picked up by DGM yet again for multiple races, in which he continued to struggle until delivering an impressive P15 in the season finale at Phoenix. Hopefully Josh and DGM can return back to the progress they were once making, but we'll have to wait and see. On Friday, in a video from SS Greenlight Racing team owner Bobby Doddard, it was announced that Graf Jr. will not be returning to the team this coming season. After a rather promising ARCA campaign with a win at Berlin in 2018 and a 5th place finish in points in 2019, he became well known in the Xfinity Series for all the wrong reasons, almost entirely because of his qualifying problems. Despite respectable finishes of 14th, 19th, and 23rd in his starts for Richard Childress Racing in 2019, his first attempt at Michigan resulted in him being the lone DNQ. And to add insult to injury, his teammate Tyler Reddick won that race. That wasn't even the only time that's happened either, as just last year at Auto Club, where his teammate at SS Greenlight, Cole Custer, won, he originally failed to qualify, but bought out the number 38 car from Ryan Sieg Racing, which had made the show thanks to Timmy Hill. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, he also DNQ'd in a Colleague racing car back in 2019 at Bristol. In his past 3 full-time seasons with SS Greenlight, he only managed to score 2 top 10s, both of which came at super speedways, but he has managed to keep his seat due to his consistent sponsorship. If he was able to keep the car clean, I would honestly let it slide, because that's just how the sport works. For years, we've seen guys like Paul Menard and Eric Almirola, for example, who underachieve, but they bring funding to their teams and rarely tear up their equipment. However, that is not the case for Graf, as from 2020 through 2022, he averaged 5.7 DNFs due to crashes per season. No matter with his sponsorship, he still might be able to land a ride for 2023, but whatever team decides to hire him, I can only wish them the best luck. Coming from MBM Motorsports, it was announced that Baltazar Leguizamon will be making his Xfinity Series debut, competing on select road courses in 2023. If the deal goes through, Baltazar will be the first Argentinian driver to race in NASCAR. At only 22 years old, he's already achieved quite a lot in the racing world, winning the 2018 Atlantic Championship Series and placing second in that year's F3 Americas Championship. For his upcoming venture into NASCAR, I have very little to no expectations, because on top of his complete inexperience, MBM has some of the worst equipment in the series. Probably just a couple top 20s would be a very reasonable goal. And lastly is a pretty big development coming from the rumored new Cup Series team 3F Racing. For a while now, they have been expressing their intent to field a Cup car, but most didn't take them too seriously. But now in what I think will be a very similar story to the Money Team Racing, which most fans also doubted would ever hit the track, Dennis Hurst, the founder of 3F, has reportedly purchased his NASCAR owner license. That's typically not a move someone who is not fully committed to fielding a car would make, so at this point I do believe they will be making a couple starts next year, and according to Hurst, their first race should be coming this spring in Atlanta. From previous experience, that probably means they won't actually show up until halfway or past halfway through the season, but regardless, I do believe they'll be around at some point for sure. Right now, they apparently are set up to run Chevrolets, potentially with manufacturer support, but as far as drivers, that's where it gets fun. The original and very ambitious plan by 3F was to enter all of the final 5 Cup races of 2022, and in a post to their Twitter page, Hurst stated, "Driver for the Roval will be a 2-time 24 Hours of Le Mans winner with a strong European background, and for the remaining races, we will field a very experienced and well-known US-American NASCAR driver." The only driver that meets that first description with any prior NASCAR starts to their name is Earl Bamber, who made one Xfinity Series start back in 2020 for Richard Childress Racing. However, there are a handful of others with 2 Le Mans wins and no NASCAR experience that could just as well be their road course driver. Then, despite the extremely generic description of the oval track driver, attentive NASCAR fans noticed that Justin Allgaier was one of the first people to follow the 3F Racing Twitter account when it first appeared. But obviously they made a total of 0 starts in any NASCAR series in 2022, so that was all for nothing. Before getting into their 2023 drivers, first of all, I should have mentioned this right away, but 3F has a late model team that competed this year, so they're not just all talk. Anyway, the driver for their late model team is a guy named Christopher Tate, who made the team's lone start in the South Carolina 250 at Florence. Not to be confused with the South Carolina 400 that Dale Jr. raced in this year, the 250 is the race under the same event but held the night prior for the limited late model division. Here's a clip taken from the race with some details about Christopher's background, as anyone who doesn't follow 3F Racing on social media most certainly has never heard of him.
And we see the race leader in Gugu Dalton in some heavy lap traffic. That 30 that he just overtook, I know you touched on it, Matthew,
what a great
in the
story.
pre-race. He hasn't raced in 3 years, but it's for good reason. He is an active military member in the United States Marine Corps. He teamed up with 3F Racing and Orion Motorsports. He's got Ryan Vargas helping him here tonight, along with many others. And it is currently Christopher Tate, whose goal is strictly to complete all the laps. He may have just gone 1 lap down, but loading that car up in one piece would be quite the accomplishment for a driver who's only done a test session at Caraway in the last 3 years.
In the race, out of a field of 26 cars, Tate would qualify in 23rd and finish P16. Honestly, not bad at all considering his complete inexperience. On Twitter, he also posted this past summer, quote, "Beyond excited to team up with Dennis, Paul, and everyone over at 3F Racing to pursue my ARCA Series debut and hopefully the Truck Series not long after. Cup details, however, are coming together rapidly," end quote. I'm quite confident he's not actually referring to racing Cup himself, because if NASCAR wouldn't give Jennifer Jo Cobb a license, they definitely wouldn't give one to a guy with as few racing accolades as Christopher Tate. But I do think ARCA could be a good idea for him next year, and although trucks are a bit of a stretch, it couldn't hurt that much just purely for the experience and exposure it would give to him. Now for what most people care about, their Cup drivers. Well, Ryan Vargas recently popped up in the ongoing 3F Racing saga during the South Carolina 400 as well, since he was more or less coaching Christopher that weekend. He very well could just be friends with him or some of the guys on the team, but that would be boring. So of course, the rumors are now that Vargas will be competing for 3F's Cup team this coming season, and personally I have mixed opinions on that. A few months back, Ryan announced he would not be returning to his Xfinity team, JD Motorsports, in 2023, and since has not given any hints related to his racing plans. Is Ryan Cup ready? No, not in the slightest. But have there been drivers with way less credentials go straight to Cup for underfunded teams? Yes, absolutely. Kyle Weatherman, for example, who I just made a video on for episode 1 of my Part-Time Drivers of 2022 series, so make sure to go check that out if you haven't already. But back to the topic at hand. I think Ryan could do an alright job on super speedways, as he did finish 12th in the Spring Atlanta race and 6th in the second Daytona race this past season. But other than his insanely impressive 8th place run back at Texas in 2020, he's had very limited success on standard mile-and-a-half ovals, and especially the road courses have not been a strong suit for him throughout his Xfinity Series tenure. In fact, in my opinion, and I'll probably get hate for this since he's pretty popular, but he's underperformed, even taking into account his underfunded equipment at JD Motorsports, or at best, he just met expectations. I think he definitely needs more time to develop in the trucks or Xfinity Series, but if the Cup schedule's his best or only option, honestly, screw it and go for it. I've heard a few times that in situations like what he's been through recently with struggles to find funding, it's better to opt for the Cup route even if you're not qualified, because sponsors would rather see their driver in the much more viewed Cup Series than an Xfinity or trucks no matter how bad they run. What I think would be the most logical plan for the teams if the aforementioned Justin Allgaier runs all the ovals and Cup and road course specialists do the road courses. Meanwhile, Ryan Vargas runs for the truck team alluded to in one of Christopher Tate's tweets, while Christopher himself competes for their ARCA division. So, will 3F Racing actually hit the track next year with a Cup car? If so, could we possibly see Ryan Vargas behind the wheel, or an ARCA or truck team started for U.S. Marine Christopher Tate? While I again do think 3F will field a Cup car at some point, the rest is just complete speculation and theories. But that's all for this week, so if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, as you won't want to miss out on next week's Silly Season News recaps, or the next episodes of my Best Part-Time Drivers of 2022 series. Also, please comment down below your thoughts on this whole situation, and whether you think 3F Racing is legit. I'd love to read what you guys have to say. But until next time, peace out.